Good day everyone! For today's video, let's learn about civil law. Let's first tackle the history of it. The Civil Code is strongly influenced by the Spanish Civil Code, which was first enforced in 1889 within the Philippines during the Spanish Empire. Kilala niyo ba
Napoleon Bonaparte?
Well, according to luminaries, binigay or ginawa
Napoleon Bonaparte?
dahil sa dami niyang lupain na nasakop during the Spanish era. Sa dami ng kanyang ari-arian, he has to manage everything. Kaya nagkaroon siya ng general law sa lahat ng kanyang nasasakupan. At ito ang tinatawag na tama! Kodigo Civil or Civil Code. The Spanish Civil Code remained in effect even during the American colonization of the Philippines. Pero noong 1940, the Commonwealth government of President Manuel Quezon had created a commission to create a new civil code. Ito dapat ay pamumunuan ni Chief Justice Ramon Advasenya. Pero dahil nagkaroon ng Japanese invasion during this time, lahat ng records ay nawala at nasira during the Battle of Manila in 1945. Noong namang 1947, President Manuel Rojas created a new Code Commission, this time headed by the former Dean of University of the Philippines, College of Law, George Bocobo. The commission completed the final draft of the new Civil Code by December 1947, and this was submitted to the Congress, which was enacted into law through Republic Act No. 386. The new Civil Code took effect in 1950. Did you also know that due to its extensive coverage and impact, the Civil Code is among the most widely studied and commended upon laws in the Philippines? Several legal luminaries developed reputations as expert on the Civil Code and consequently enhanced their reputations in the field of Philippine law. O ngayon, alam niyo na. Ngayon, panoorin niyo naman kung bakit mahalaga ang civil law.
Civil law is essentially concerned with conflict resolution with the goal of preventing disagreements between individuals from escalating into a violent confrontation. It promotes cooperation among members of society while discouraging exploitative behavior and unethical business practices. Without civil law, larger corporations will exploit smaller businesses by failing to pay for goods or services as promised. At the same time, if a tenant's former landlord simply refused to return a security deposit without providing an adequate explanation, they would have no recourse. Ang batas ang magsasabi sa'yo na ibalik mo ang hindi para sa'yo. It is called unjust enrichment. Unjust enrichment exists when a person unjustly retains a benefit to the loss of another, or when a person retains money or property of another against the fundamental principles of justice, equity, and good conscience. Sa tourism and hospitality management, bawal ang nanglalabang. In terms of personality, there are two types of personality in civil law, which is the natural person and the juridical person. The natural person refers to a living human being with certain rights and responsibilities under the law. Then, the juridical person is a being of legal existence, susceptible of rights and obligations, or of being subject of juridical relations. The goal of civil law is to ensure that we are fair in our interactions with one another. The tourism and hospitality industries are intrinsically tied to the legal system. When dealing with one another, business organizations such as hotels, agencies, and restaurants rely on common law. When businesses interact with customers by providing goods and services, the law also comes into play. Restaurants, for example, have a legal obligation to ensure that the foods they serve to customers are safe to consume and the premises do not pose a fire hazard to occupants. In short, the purpose of civil law is to make sure that we are fair in our dealings with each other.
Hey guys, so for today, I will be showing you some kind of twists in terms of everyday routine, or should I say one of my routine every day. I'm gonna show you my skincare routine, but like what I said, we have some twists. While I'm doing my skincare routine, I will explain one of the important procedure in terms of legal law. Sounds really different, right? And disclaimer, this is also a gentle reminder that men should and can be hygienic. So let's start. Let's start first with my toner. But while I'm applying this one, we have another work to do. I'm going to explain further the meaning and explanation of human relations law. So first I'm gonna apply my toner. This one's my toner. So human relations law refers to rules needed to govern the interrelationships of human beings in a society for the purpose of maintaining social order. As people have diverse and different interests and desire, it is but natural clashes of interests arise in their interaction. So, we're done. doing our toner, and we're also done explaining what is the meaning of human relations. So after applying our toner, we will now have our moisturizer. So this is my moisturizer, aloe vera. But on the same note, how important is this law? So based on the Philippine Civil Code chapter on human relations and contemporary challenges, the chapter of the Philippine Civil Code on human relations starts with Articles 19, 20, and 21. So these articles provide the legal bedrock for the award of damages to a party who suffers damage. We're gonna apply our moisturizer now. These articles apply either when first one commits an act in violation of some legal provision, or second, and more relevantly, one commits an act that does not violate any positive law but nevertheless violates rudimentary rights of the party aggrieved. There are so-called catch-all provisions because they provide the basis for actions for damages in the absence of any provision or any express provision. Lastly, I will put on some sunscreen. This one's my sunscreen. But I usually apply serum before putting on this sunscreen, but I ran out of it. But it's no big deal. Back to our topic, one example of how human relations work is for our employer or in the workplace environment. I'm gonna apply first my sunscreen. This is insane and at the same time, different way of explaining. So the best example of this one is for the workplace environment. The human context of a consistently defined role, human relation is the set of processes, procedures, and individuals involved in supporting the needs of employees in the employer in the workplace. So this usually involves systems such as hiring, evaluations, ending employment, and ongoing training. So human relations also often involves situations that might occur involving conflict or other complications involving personnel. Often a company will include a specific department or individual who is responsible for workplace human relations, sometimes included in their human resources department. My name is Christopher, and I do hope that you learned something from me today. Bye!
Areas within civil law.
Hi guys! So for today's video, I will be doing my makeup with a twist. So for the next step, I'm gonna get my eyebrows done. So according to research guys, the law person is defined as the body of rules concerned with legal position of the human person, comprising their rights, capacities, and duties. Law persons also pertain to the various aspects of a person as an individual, as a member of community, or as a member of a family. So guys, additionally, the law person forms part of private law, and is also concerned with the determination of legal subjectivity, the rights and duties associated with legal personality, and issues of legal status. So guys, I believe the example of the law of persons here in the Philippines is the Republic Act number 10754, wherein it expands the benefits and privileges of the persons with disabilities. And I believe the relation of this case to wisdom is when we give discounts to PWDs whenever they traveling, for example, in the jeepneys, in the buses, and also when lodging accommodations to hotels, they give discounts to PWDs.
And for my quick introduction, I believe that a person with disability shall be respected with his or her own individual dignity and live a decent life. And I believe all persons shall participate in all social, cultural, and economic practices in the society. Bye guys, thank you.
Let's talk about obligation. According to Article 1156 of New Civil Code of the Philippines, an obligation is a judicial necessity that to give, to do, or not to do. This obligation arises from the law, contracts, quasi-contracts, omission by law, or quasi-delicts. Obligation is a moral or legal duty that requires an individual to perform, as well as potential penalties for failure to perform. In the most general sense, duty is another word for obligation. Example for that is the airline industry. Philippine airline industry has been booming internationally and domestically. With the increased number of passengers, the number of complaints against flight disruptions likewise increase. For every flight disruptions, like canceled flights or delayed flights, the airlines are not gonna say, okay, their flights are delayed, let's leave them to be and focus on the other things. No, ano yung anwe, hindi po. Airline has an obligation in every flight disruptions like compensation, statement of treatment, or refund. In the Philippines, for every 24-hour cancel or delayed flights, the airlines will give you 2,000 for compensation. That is a legal obligation of an airline which they are required to meet. As we say, obligation is a legal duty. If you have obligation to do something, it is your duty to do that obligation as per se in the contract.
Now, let's talk about contracts. According to the article of 388 of Civil Code of the Philippines 2005, a contract is an agreement between parties in relation to the establishment, change, or termination of certain civil rights and obligations. It is a meeting of minds between two persons whereby one binds himself, written or unwritten, with respect to the other to give something or to render some service. A written appearance or any form of documentation is not an element of a valid contract. As long as an agreement satisfies all of the aforesaid three elements, then there exists a valid contract regardless of whether or not it is in writing, but it is still best practice to reduce all agreement in writing. One of the examples is for travel services between the travel service provider, a company organized and existing under the laws, and the client, a company organized and existing under the laws, whereas the travel service provider is in the business of providing travel management and other travel agency services, whereas the client wishes to obtain such services exclusively from the travel service provider wishes to be the exclusive provider thereof to the client, subject to the terms and conditions of this contract. So, ang taong pumirma ng isang kontrata ay hindi niya pwedeng baguhin ang napagkasunduan dahil ang nakalagay sa loob ng kontrata ay ang batas na namamayani sa kanilang kasunduan. Ang partido sa kontrata na lumabag sa kanyang obligasyon ay walang karapatan na kanselahin ng kontrata dahil ang karapatan na ito ay binibigay ng batas sa partidos na tumutupad sa kanyang obligasyon sa kontrata. Ang partidos na tumutupad sa kanyang obligasyon sa kontrata ay may remedyo sa batas na pilitin ang kabilang partidos na hindi tumupad sa obligasyon na tuparin ito at kanselahin ang kontrata, kasama ang pagbabayad ng danyos.
I'm Hazelan Halili, and I will discuss one of the areas of civil law, which is tort law. A tort is an act or omission that gives rise to injury or harm to another and amounts to a civil wrong from which courts impose liability. Common torts include assault, battery, damage to personal property, conversion of personal property, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. Injury to people may include of emotional harm as well as physical harm. Like for example, pumunta ka sa isang restaurant tapos yung inuupuan mo merong ceiling fan sa taas. And then suddenly nalaglag sa'yo yung ceiling fan and it caused injury. Nasugatan ka and need mo ng medical treatment. And according to tort law, anything that gives rise to injury or harm to another, you have the right to make a complaint against the restaurant. And they need to give you liabilities that you deserve for their negligence. Tort law governs the remedies for civil wrongs. Whoever is liable for the wrongful act, whether done accidentally or intentionally, the injured or the aggrieved party is compensated by the payment for damages, and that damages may include compensation for loss of property, medical expenses, mental or physical incapability, pain and suffering, and punitive damages to punish the wrongdoer.
Let us now go to the property law. Ano nga ba ang property law? Property law is the area of civil law that governs what people own. In short, ito yung mga gamit or land or any property na pagmamayari ng isang kumpanya. It is all about the things which are or may be the object of appropriation, either immovable or movable property. Ano nga ba ang immovable or movable property? Immovable property. These are the buildings, the lands, roads, and constructions of any kind adhered to the soil. In hospitality and tourism industry, these are the infrastructures providing accommodation and service to the tourists or guests who are traveling from one place to another, like hotels, resorts, inns, B&Bs, etc., as well as travel agencies and airports. All things are objects inside these buildings, like the furniture, the appliances, materials, and supplies. Basta lahat ng gamit sa loob ng kumpanya ay bawal mong ilabas or iuwi dahil pagmamayari nila ito. Like for example, iuwi mo ba ang table or ang upuan na ginagamit nila sa loob ng hotel or sa travel agency or sa kahit anong kumpanya? According to the law, these things are considered as immovable properties since these objects are incorporated to the company or the building itself. Kaya bawal mong iuwi or kunin ang gamit na hindi sa'yo. Movable property or personal property naman in general, these are the things which can be transported from place to place without the impairment of the real property to which they are fixed. It can be easily moved from one place to another without changing its size, shape, quantity, or quality. Movable property, ito yung mga bagay na pwede mong ma-transfer from one place to another with human efforts. An example of this is when making a mere delivery just to transfer that particular movable property completes the transfer. Or in other words, kapag nag-book tayo ng tour package including yung transportation, yung tour bus na binook or ni-rent ng travel agency will transfer the passengers. Like for example, from Manila to Baguio. And that means that the tour bus is the movable property of the travel agency.
Hi there! My name is Marda Lapanador and this time naman ang topic natin is about sales. Law of sales or contract of sales because this falls under the provisions and contracts. So sales, in our day-to-day life, each of us could be selling or buying an item, right? If we question ourselves, ilang beses tayo bumibili sa isang araw? Gano'n na kadami ang kinita mo today? Kaya di ba minsan napapasabi tayo na hala, ang gastos ko ngayong araw, hala, ang dami ko nang napabili, hala, lagot ako sa mama ko. Well, sa akin, relate ako doon and I think it's pretty normal naman talaga since it's part of our lives where we engage ourselves in sales transactions, whether it is a thing or an item. So, what is sales all about? Meaning, the sales includes the obligations of the seller and the buyer, in which the contract of sale is an agreement for the seller that obligates himself to deliver something, and for the buyer binds himself to pay, therefore, a sum of money or its equivalent known as its price. For example, sa tourism and hospitality industry, let's say sa hotel, si person A gusto niya magbakasyon sa hotel for 2 days. Check-in for 2 days sa deluxe room. Wow, deluxe room. So, she goes to the hotel front desk and there she met person B. So, person A asked how much for their rooms, their facilities, and other services. And then person B answered and explained about their accommodations. And as for the person A again, since gusto niya mag-staycation sa hotel, she agrees on what the person B sells and signs a form or a contract and then pays for the check-in. Therefore, what will the person A receive since this is a service type of business? Well, the answer is the key to the hotel room, their facilities, and access to other services. And from that case, there's an exchange happen, there's an agreement, they both follow their obligations as well the law itself.
Hi guys, so for today's video, samahan niyo mag-impake ng gamit at mag-discuss about barter contract. So mag-umpisa tayo sa barter contract. What is barter contract? It is a barter agreement that is a legal contract that outlines the terms of trade between parties. This could be a trade of goods, services, product, or similar. Barter agreements are often used in a place of exchanging cash or monetary payments. A barter agreement is a type of payment that allows for goods, services, products, and commodities to be traded legally. After signing, you create a legally binding agreement between the parties. And these are the some examples of barter contract agreement. These are the some example of bartering contract agreement. The farmer who produces soybeans may enter into a barter agreement with the farmer who produces fertilizer, both agreeing to exchange amount of their product which is other for mutual benefit. Barter agreements cannot work with land but exclusively involve exchanges of goods and services between both parties. Kung tayo tuloy pumunta sa pag-impake, meron ako additional knowledge about barter contract agreement. How to create a barter contract agreement. First, calculate the monetary value of the goods or services involved. Second, begin negotiations with the other contract party to draft the specific terms of the barter agreement. And the last one is, draft a contract that includes the agreed upon details of the barter. That's all. Thank you.
Hi guys! For this video, the topic natin na common carrier of transportation law. As the Supreme Court of the Philippines, they continuously cited the aforementioned provisions and others law as part of its jurisprudence. Passage of this bill is earnestly sought. It seeks to supplement existing status by mandating drivers of public conveyances to undergo training and education. The bill also intends to benefit the riding public through driver information, aim at safety measures and the common carriers and their respective drivers. Ano nga ba ang common carrier? A common carrier is defined as a private or public entity that transports people from one place to another for a fee. The term is also used to describe public utilities. The word common is an important distinction here. A common carrier such as bus service offers its services to the general public, unlike a private carrier that might be available to only specific clients on a contractual basis. A utility may be considered a common carrier under the law because it makes no distinction in its customers. It is available to anyone in its coverage area who is willing to pay the fee. Ang example na lang nito ay, once na nakapasok ka na o nakaapa ka na sa aeroplano, may kontrata na nabuo doon at obligasyon ng carrier na dalhin ka sa pupuntahan mo ng safe dahil pag may nangyari sa'yo o nasaktan ka, liable si carrier dahil responsibilidad niya na maging ligtas ka.
Now, let's talk about the benefits of civil law. Did you know that the civil law has the advantage of making a decision? For example, may isang powerful na tao o kaya isang kumpanya na who cannot run over a small individual or pollute their property.
without being held accountable. Kumbaga, kung involved ka or ako sa isang accident or ikaw ay yung naaragabyado tapos na-damage yung property mo, you can use or sue, pwede kang magreklamo for compensation, and in that way, you can receive money para makatulong sa problem or damages. As I might add, the purpose of civil law is to enable individuals, businesses, and local and central government to vindicate and, if necessary, enforce their civil legal rights and obligations, whether sa rights man yan ng private or sa public. So ano nga ba ang pakinabang niya sa tourism industry? That's the biggest question. Ano nga ba? Malaki ang pakinabang nito dahil alam naman natin na ang tourism industry ay napakalawak at napakalaki, kaya naman ang civil law ay sobrang mahalaga sa atin dahil it helps our industry to operate smoothly as the civil law do its job. It dares to question or suspicious ng ibang company or businesses dyan sa isa't isa. It also enforces the legal rights of an individual or company under tourism industry, and minimake sure niya na nagagawa natin yung mga obligations natin as a company, whether as a public or private. In addition, the civil law endorses economic activity, allowing contracts to be made between strangers because rights are taken care of in the courts if they breach.
Hi, today we are gonna talk about what if you are responsible for the damages. But first, what is damages or civil damages? Civil damages when a person suffers a loss as a result of another party's improper or negligence actions. Civil damages are awarded, and there's three types of damages. Number 1, compensatory damages. Here include the compensation for expenses such as medical bills, legal costs, loss of income, and costs associated with repairing or replacing damaged property. And the second one is the general damages. Here, the payment for non-financial damages such as pain and suffering. And lastly, the punitive damages. Here, it talks about payment for losses caused by negligence of a defendant. Now, I'm giving some examples what if you are proven and liable for these damages. Let's start. So, may isang kumpanya na mag-aalok o magbibigay ng bagong mataas na posisyon at mas mataas na sweldo. At si Employee 1 dapat ang makakuha nito, pero itong si Employee 2 ay may ginawang hindi maganda para kay Employee 1 upang hindi niya makuha yung ibibigay na mataas na sweldo. So, ang resulta kay Employee 1 is mawalan siya ng salary increase o potensyal na dagdag kita. At dahil dito, sa ginawa ni Employee 2, doon po pasok yung loss of income. Pero punta tayo kay Employee 2. So, if si Employee 2 ay na-prove na siya ay liable for these damages, si Employee 2 ay pwedeng hatulan ng pagbabayad o parusa ng asistensya. Pero depende pa rin sa kanilang apela ng patinong liable for these damages. But let's go back to the question, what if you are responsible for the damages? This is the basic and simple answer. Kung may pera ka or may kakaya kang makapagbayad, hindi ka makukulong.
One general law, which is considered as isa sa pinakamalaki or pinakamahabang coverage ng batas. Additionally, according to my research, civil code is divided into 5 books with a specific book covering. Therefore, malawak talaga siya at mahaba. Kaya isang malaking pagrespeto at pagsaludo sa lahat ng mga taong nag-aaral ng abogasya o ng mga batas. Dahil personally, para sa akin, hindi ko talaga kaya. Pero kinakaya ng karamihan. Kaya your dreams are valid talaga. Wala talagang mahirap sa taong mataas ang pangarap. My groupmates talks about civil law and why is it important, which is kaya nga tayo nagkaroon ng civil code dahil according to luminaries, binigay or ginawa ito ni Napoleon Bonaparte. Dahil sa sobrang dami niyang lupain na nasakop during that time and sa sobrang dami niyang ari-arian, he has to manage everything. Kaya nagkaroon ng general law sa lahat ng mga nasasakupan niya, which is sinatawag natin Kodigo Sibil or Civil Code. There are two personalities sa batas natin, yung natural person and yung juridical person. Natural person, ito yung mga pinanganak sa mundo. Juridical person, ito yung mga kumpanya or yung mga partnership. In human relation, kapag sobra ang sukli sa'yo, dapat mong ibalik. Dahil ang batas ang magsasabi sa'yo na ibalik mo ang hindi para sa'yo. It is called unjust enrichment. In property law, there are two. Immovable and movable. Immovable, ito yung mga pagmamayari ng isang kumpanya. Kaya bawal kang maglabas ng pagmamayari ng isang kumpanya. Kaya ang batas ang magsasabi sa'yo na huwag mong iuwi ang mga gamit na hindi para sa'yo. Movable naman, kabaliktaran ng immovable. Movable, these are the property that can be moved from one place to another. Kailan naman papasok ang obligation and contract sa tourism and hospitality management? Yung common carrier. Yung common carrier, siya yung engaged in transferring people or goods from one place to another. Therefore, the moment na tumapa ka sa tapolodo ng jeep or maybe ng eroplano, meron ng kontratang nabuo doon. Kaya bawal kang masaktan sa pagsakay at pagbaba mo dahil according sa law, reliable na ang common carrier. So ano yung takeaway natin sa mga lesson na na-discuss? First, law help us to regulate social behavior. Tinuturuan tayong kumilos ng tama, ng may disiplina at pagkamakatao. Kahit sa simpleng pagbabalik ng sobrang sukli sa isang driver. O in other words, ang pagbibigay respeto at pantay na pagtingin sa lahat ng individual, kahit anuman ang estado nito sa buhay o anuman ang anyo nito. In relation naman sa tourism and hospitality, ang matutong makisama at huwag mang lalamang ng kapwa. Dapat marunong tayong rumispeto
mahalin at pahalagahan ng isa't isa. After all, we are all in the same industry, kaya bakit ka pa manlalamang ng kapwa para lang matawag na angat ka? We should know how to be responsible enough sa lahat ng actions natin, dahil all actions have consequences.